Investigators were back at the Nancy Guthrie home today with the most visible activity we've seen in days.
The FBI interrogation of Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law just revealed something shocking. And the exact moment it happened is captured on camera in a way that will make your stomach drop.
Today, there's kind of a potential breakthrough that authorities could use for their investigation.
For 90 minutes, this man sat across from two federal agents and performed the role of a devastated family member so convincingly you'd almost believe him. Almost. Then Special Agent Russell Dante pressed play on a single audio recording, and in 4 seconds flat, everything this man had carefully rehearsed collapsed. His face went gray. His hands started shaking so violently the camera caught it from 6 feet away. 6 hours of psychological unraveling followed, all of it caught on footage that was never supposed to go public. Inside that room, a traced 2:47 a.m. phone call, 3 weeks of planning texts, a wiped laptop that surrendered every secret, and a motive so cold it will change how you see this case entirely. This is what really happened. The performance. 5:30 in the morning. Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law is escorted into a stark FBI interview room. Hair uncombed, eyes swollen, still wearing the clothes he slept in, but already performing, already projecting theatrical confusion, blinking under the fluorescent lights like a man who couldn't possibly fathom why federal agents just dragged him out of bed before dawn. 2 agents sit across from him. The lead interrogator, Special Agent Russell Dante, a 23-year veteran of the FBI's Violent Crimes Division. In the opening minutes, Dante does almost nothing. He listens. He lets the suspect fill the silence, because suspects who think they're winning always talk too much. His partner, a younger agent from the Bureau's Behavioral Analysis Support Unit, barely speaks for the entire 6 hours. But his pen never stops moving. Every word, every flinch documented in real time. Here's the first thing you need to hold on to. Agent Dante reads the Miranda warnings. The son-in-law waves them off like he's dismissing a parking ticket. No hesitation, no request for a moment to think, no attorney. He declines with the casual arrogance of a man who has already decided he'll outmaneuver 2 federal investigators and walk out before lunch. That decision, made in under 3 seconds, destroyed his life. His opening act is polished, rehearsed. Steady hands, direct eye contact, complete confidence. I have absolutely no idea why I'm here. This is insane. I would never hurt Nancy. She's my mother-in-law. I love her like my own mother. Every word calibrated, every gesture calculated. He'd clearly spent time preparing for this. What he hadn't prepared for was Russell Dante. When agents asked him to walk through the evening, Nancy disappeared. He delivered his story with the consistency that only comes from repetition. Nancy came for dinner. They played card games, her favorite. She was in great spirits. He volunteered to drive her home around 9:45, walked her to the front door, waited until he heard the lock click, then drove away. And get this, he added granular details to build credibility. What Nancy wore, what she ate, how she laughed telling a story about her late husband during dessert, the woman who carried a framed photo of her grandchildren in her purse everywhere she went, enjoying her last evening surrounded by family she trusted completely, including the man now sitting across from Agent Dante. For 90 full minutes, the son-in-law maintained total composure. He even asked how the investigation was going, playing the concerned relative, not the man who had orchestrated the abduction. Dante let him talk. Let him repeat the story. Let him grow more confident with each retelling. He wasn't gathering information anymore. He was building a runway, giving this man every opportunity to lock himself into a version of events that was about to be demolished. Dante leaned back and let the suspect believe he was winning. He wasn't. If you want to watch a 23-year FBI veteran dismantle a man who thinks he's untouchable, you need to subscribe right now. Because what happens in the next 60 seconds of that footage is something agents in that building still talk about. The phone call. 90 minutes in, the son-in-law is leaning back, almost relaxed. Then Dante signals his partner with a single glance. No words, no gesture, just a look. The younger agent produces a laptop and audio equipment and sets them on the table without explanation. Dante goes completely still. No shift in expression, no warning. He lets the equipment sit there long enough for the son-in-law to notice it, wonder about it, and feel the first crack of doubt. Then Dante leans forward, 7 words. I want you to listen very carefully. The son-in-law's reaction, mild curiosity. A flicker of amusement even, as if he's genuinely interested in whatever the FBI thinks they have. That amusement lasted 4 seconds. Then the speakers filled the room with his own voice. The recording is a traced call from a burner phone to the son-in-law's personal cell at 2:47 a.m. On it, the kidnapper reports Nancy's condition is deteriorating, the ransom plan has failed, and they're debating what to do with her. The son-in-law isn't listening passively. He's directing, discussing logistics, referencing details about Nancy's captivity that only someone running the operation would know. Pay close attention to what happens next, because the physical transformation captured on that footage is something that, once you've seen it, you cannot unsee. The color drains from his face in real time, not a figure of speech. His skin goes from normal to gray within seconds. His hands, steady on that table for over an hour, start trembling so violently the camera picks it up from 6 feet away. His entire body recoils backward. The confident lean is gone, replaced by the posture of a man trying to disappear into his own chair. The recording ends. Silence swallows the room. 3 seconds, 5, 7. Dante doesn't move. The same stillness he used at the start, except now it means something entirely different. Then he breaks it. That's your voice, isn't it? Denial. That doesn't sound like me. His voice cracks on the word me. The weakness in every syllable betrays him. He knows. They know. The camera knows. Dante plays the recording again, pausing at specific moments, isolating statements that prove coordination. Each pause surgical. Each one stripping away another layer of the performance. The son-in-law's breathing changes visibly. Shallow, rapid, like someone fighting the urge to be sick. He scrambles. The call was about something else. Business matters, a personal situation with his cousin Marcus that investigators are misinterpreting. Dante lets that explanation hang just long enough for the son-in-law to believe it might work. Then he reaches for the folder. The text messages. The second agent drops a thick folder on the table. Inside, printed copies of every text message exchanged between the son-in-law and Marcus, spanning 3 weeks of planning through the night Nancy was taken. Dante reads them aloud, slowly, sliding each page across so the son-in-law can see his own words in black ink. Thursday night works best. Her routine is predictable. You'll need to disable the doorbell camera first. I'll tell you exactly where it is. The back door is the weak point. Front door has too much security. She takes sleeping pills around 10 p.m. Give it an hour after that. Here's what nobody in that room expected. His face as those words were read back to him. That slow, sickening realization that every message he sent planning this crime had been recovered and was now being read aloud in a federal building. You can see on the footage the exact moment his jaw goes slack. The man who had an answer for everything suddenly has nothing. These aren't vague messages. They reference Nancy's daily routine, her home layout, her vulnerability window, her exact medication schedule. The woman who laughed at dinner telling stories about her late husband, reduced to a target profile in his own words. He tried, claimed his phone was hacked. Someone else sent those messages to frame him. Agent Dante didn't blink. Cell tower records placed the phone at the son-in-law's verified locations when each message was sent. His workplace, his home, restaurants confirmed by credit card receipts. Timestamps aligned with his daily routine in ways impossible for a remote hacker to replicate. He pivoted. Marcus fabricated the messages, spoofed them somehow. That collapsed too. The messages exist on Marcus's phone, the carrier's servers, the son-in-law's own device, and cloud backups that the FBI's cyber forensics unit confirmed are authentic and unaltered. 4 independent sources, all matching perfectly. The man who strutted into this room is gone. What's sitting across from Dante now is someone watching his life disintegrate in real time. And the text messages weren't even the worst of it. The laptop. This is where it changes. Despite the son-in-law running a commercial data wiping program on his laptop 3 days before his arrest, FBI Digital Forensics Division specialists recovered everything. Every search, every query, every digital fingerprint he thought he'd erased. Agent Dante reads the recovered entries from a printed forensic report. His voice doesn't rise, doesn't dramatize, flat and clinical, like he's reading a grocery list, which somehow makes it worse. The younger agent's pen stops moving for the first time in 4 hours. He just stares at the table, searches for how to kidnap someone without leaving evidence. Queries about anonymous Bitcoin ransom payments. Research into how long elderly individuals can survive without their prescribed medications. The same medications Nancy Guthrie takes every morning and every night. The same medications she didn't have when she was taken from the home this man had mapped out in his own text messages. But here's where it gets worse. Methods for disposing of remains in desert locations. Comparisons between sentencing for kidnapping versus murder. And the most chilling entry of all, a search conducted 72 hours before Nancy disappeared. Whether accomplices receive lesser sentences if the victim dies during captivity. Read that again. He wasn't just planning a kidnapping, he was planning for the possibility, maybe the intention, that Nancy wouldn't survive it. The woman who carried photos of her grandchildren everywhere she went. He was researching how to get away with her death before she was even taken. The searches spanned 3 weeks, general curiosity escalating into specific operational planning, disabling doorbell cameras, bypassing alarms, finding accomplices willing to commit crimes for cash. All from the same device where forensic specialists found searches tied directly to Nancy's medication and schedule and home security. And get this, the son-in-law's defense was that he was researching a crime novel. Dante shut that down in 3 sentences. No manuscript files, no notes, no outlines. Not a single document suggesting any creative writing project had ever existed on that machine. Just search after search after search, each one more specific, each one inching closer to the operational blueprint of what eventually happened to Nancy Guthrie. The son-in-law finally tried invoking his Fifth Amendment right to silence. Too late. 3 hours of recorded lies, contradictions, and failed explanations preserved on camera. The damage was catastrophic, irreversible, but the evidence wasn't finished with him. Following the money. 3 hours in, agents shifted to motive. What they laid out painted the portrait of a man so completely underwater, he had convinced himself that destroying an 84-year-old woman was his only. Way back to the surface. 3 details from the FBI's Financial Crimes Analysis Unit, that's all it took. First, total financial collapse. Checking account overdrawn by thousands. Credit cards maxed. Payments months behind. Mortgage in default with foreclosure threatened within 60 days. Combined debts exceeding $250,000 against income that barely covered monthly expenses. Second, unexplained cash withdrawals totaling $30,000 in the 3 weeks before Nancy vanished. When asked where the money went, his answers shifted like sand. Business expenses, then home repairs, then a blank stare. He simply couldn't remember. $30,000. Gone. Third, and this is the part that changes everything. Nancy's existing will left her multi-million-dollar estate split equally between her 2 daughters. If Nancy died before changing that document, Annie, the son-in-law's wife, would inherit approximately $2 million as maritals, property shared with her husband. Every debt erased, every creditor silenced, every problem solved with a single inheritance check. But Nancy had already scheduled an appointment with her attorney to execute a revised will, one that would dramatically reduce Annie's share. That appointment was days away. The son-in-law knew about it. Agents confirmed he had overheard Nancy discussing the changes at a family dinner. The same dinner where she laughed telling stories about her late husband. The same dinner where she trusted him enough to let him drive her home. Here's what nobody talks about. He wasn't just broke. He was watching a $2 million lifeline evaporate. Every day brought Nancy closer to that attorney's office, closer to a signature that would eliminate his only escape from ruin. The desperation wasn't just financial anymore, it was existential. The financial trail explained the why. What happened in that room next revealed the how. The breaking point. 4.5 hours in. The footage shows a man physically unraveling, slumped posture, visible exhaustion, hands that won't stop shaking, the confident innocence from hour one, replaced by the hollow expression of someone who has run out of lies. Dante recognizes it immediately. Here's what a 23-year interrogator does at that moment. He doesn't press harder, he pulls back. The confrontational pressure vanishes. Something warmer takes its place, far more dangerous. Look, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of people in your situation. Things start as one thing and spiral into something you never intended. Maybe you just wanted to scare Nancy, get her to reconsider the will changes. Maybe you thought Marcus would hold her for a day or two and let her go once she agreed. Then Dante leans forward and drops his voice almost to a quiet. But right now, Nancy is out there somewhere. She's 84 years old. She doesn't have her heart medication. She doesn't have her blood, pressure pills. She has a framed photo of her grandchildren in her purse that she carries everywhere. And she's alone. You can stop that suffering right now. In this room, the rigid defensiveness cracks. His eyes fill with tears for the first time in 4.5 hours. And then, the first real admission, small but seismic. I knew Marcus was having financial problems. I gave him some money to help out. How much? Maybe $20,000. One answer. That's all it took. He had claimed he couldn't remember where the cash went. Now he's admitting $20,000 went directly to the man who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie. The financial link between orchestrator and accomplice, established in the suspect's own words. And that crack in the wall was about to become a complete collapse. The collapse. Total denial, dead. The son-in-law pivoted to his final strategy, admitting a connection to Marcus while insisting his cousin acted alone. Marcus was desperate, unstable. He must have independently planned the kidnapping from information overheard at family gatherings. Dante let him build this narrative for several minutes, nodded along, took notes. Not because he believed it, but because letting a suspect commit to a lie is the last thing you do before you break them with the truth. Then he dismantled it with a single sentence. We have Marcus in the next room, and he's telling us something very different. The blood left the son-in-law's face for the second time that morning. Marcus says the son-in-law approached him with the entire plan, the timeline, the entry point, when Nancy would be most vulnerable. Offered him $50,000 to hold her until she died, without her medications, or until ransom was collected. He gave agent specifics, the restaurant where they met, the parking lot where cash was exchanged, detailed instructions about Nancy's home layout and schedule. Here's what makes that testimony impossible to dismiss. Marcus knew which sleeping pills Nancy takes and what time she takes them. That is not casual family knowledge. That is operational detail passed deliberately. And get this, criminals almost always assume their accomplices won't talk. That assumption collapses the moment federal charges enter the picture. When Marcus realized he was facing decades in federal prison, not state, federal, loyalty evaporated within hours. Self-preservation wins. It always does. Additional evidence piled on. Security camera footage of the two men meeting privately before Nancy vanished. Witness statements from staff who overheard talk of a job and taking care of a problem. And financial records proving promised payments beyond the $30,000 already delivered. Cornered, the son-in-law attempted one final maneuver, a partial confession designed to minimize exposure. The kidnapping discussions were hypothetical. He may have mentioned details about Nancy's routine, but never explicitly told Marcus to take her. Dante didn't need a long response. He pointed to the 2:47 a.m. phone call. A man who's surprised by a crime doesn't receive calls from the perpetrator discussing the victim's condition. A man who's surprised doesn't talk logistics about a failed ransom plan. A man who's surprised doesn't ask what to do with an 84-year-old woman who's running out of time. And a man who's surprised doesn't already know which medication she needs to stay alive. The footage captures the exact moment the son-in-law realizes no version of this ends with him walking free. Every lie cataloged, every pivot documented, every attempt to minimize met with evidence that made his position worse. Down the hallway, Marcus was filling in every gap the physical evidence couldn't reach. 6 hours. That's how long it took for a man who believed he was the smartest person in that room to completely unravel under the weight of his own lies. But the most disturbing detail of this interrogation isn't the evidence or the phone call. It's this. Across 6 hours and dozens of opportunities, the son-in-law never once expressed genuine concern for Nancy Guthrie. Not once. Every tear was for himself. Every emotional moment was about his own consequences, his future, his collapsing life. The 84-year-old woman who carried photos of her grandchildren in her purse, who laughed at her own dinner table the night she was taken, trusting the man sitting across from Dante to get her home safely. She was never more than a dollar sign to him. What Marcus told agents about those first 48 hours of Nancy's captivity left hardened investigators unable to speak. If you've stayed this far, you know you need to see what comes next. Because the question everyone in that building was asking, whether Nancy Guthrie was still alive when they found her, deserves an answer. Subscribe now for Nancy, because what comes next is worse.